Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parents Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Should I expose my mom's Facebook lies? After that, my teacher insulted my work. It then got featured in the biggest art gallery in the country. And after that, parents leave me with a sick baby and refuse to return until they have had enough fun. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets exposed on Facebook. Oh, leave Facebook out of this. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Should I expose my mom's Facebook lies? I, 28 female, moved in with my conservative parents for a few months earlier this year because they needed help with life during lockdown. During that time, like many people, I launched myself into baking. It's always been a special hobby as I'm pretty shy, and baking things for people I care about is one of the few ways I can express myself. Over the years, when I've made something challenging, my mom, who's 65, has insisted I send her photos. I always thought it was cool that she was interested and would send her lots of pictures. Needless to say, when I was living with her, she was hovering around like some kind of pastry paparazzi. Tonight, while visiting, Mom asked me to help her with her Facebook privacy settings. While doing so, I discovered that she's been posting pictures of my bakes with me cropped out and claiming them as her own creations. I haven't added her on Facebook, so I had no idea that she had been doing this for literally years. The captions were always something like, "Freshly baked apple pie. Thank goodness OP can rely on me to bake for her." Underneath the posts, family and friends usually comment on how great she bakes and that I was spoiled for being a grown adult who still didn't know how to cook. After going through all of the posts, I noticed there was a theme. She depicts me as a pathetic, lonely loser, incapable of looking after myself. Most of her family lives overseas and have no idea that she's lying, while her friends don't know me well enough to question it. So Reddit, would I be the jerk if I logged into my mom's Facebook and changed all the captions to be more honest? I hate confrontations, but I don't know what to do. Update. It's been almost 24 hours, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who has responded. You're all totally right. My initial approach was immature and lazy. I was taking the easy way out and not facing having the awkward and frankly painful conversation required. I spent some time today practicing what I want to say so that I don't freeze up like I usually do. I've also told my dad about the posts. He doesn't have Facebook. He was shocked but not surprised. He said that she's previously posted fake holiday photos and once claimed she had rescued a puppy. She thinks it's funny and that they're just white lies. He found out when he ran into people who asked him about them, which led to a lot of confusion and embarrassment for him. He's asked me to come over tomorrow. He's going to help keep things calm so that I can talk to her. When she gets upset, she starts shouting, which usually ends the conversation because I freeze up. I've had time to cool down, and while I'm still really hurt, I mainly just feel overwhelmingly sad for her. I think our chat might turn into a bigger mental health discussion because, as many people have pointed out, she must be deeply unhappy with parts of her life if she has to pretend to be this apple pie baking, puppy saving, luxury holiday taking person. Regardless of how the chat goes, I know I need some time away from her to process things. As suggested, I've added a few members of my mom's family on Facebook where I've uploaded pictures and progress shots of my baking. I exchanged messages with my aunt, Mom's cousin, this afternoon that I haven't seen since I was a kid and arranged a video chat with her and her family this weekend. She mentioned that she loves cooking and sent me a family recipe that I plan to record and share with just my family. I'll probably babble all the way through it and look stupid, but I'm excited to find a positive way to clear my name. I've gotten so many great ideas from everyone here, and I'm grateful to you all that I didn't go through with my terrible original idea. I honestly can't thank you folks enough for your advice. Well, what do you think? Should OP log into their mom's Facebook and change the captions on the pictures or not? Please let us know. I dare you to log into my Facebook. My teacher insulted my work. It then got featured in the biggest art gallery in the country. Context. The school I go to is well respected in my country, so it was not uncommon for venues to request to display a student's work or to ask for students to sing live for them. On the occasion in question, the largest art gallery in the country, Gallery X, had asked my school to submit inspired art to be out on display. The school agreed and said they would submit 5 pieces of work, 1 piece per year for years 9 through 13. Back to the story. I hated art growing up, but it was a mandatory subject until you got to choose your subjects in year 10. Needless to say, I dropped the subject ASAP. Despite hating the subject, I still put effort into my work and some of it wasn't that bad. However, at the time I would not hide away from expressing my views when we were given a task that I didn't see a point to, even if the teacher was in earshot. Needless to say, my relationship with that art department faculty wasn't the best. My teacher at the time particularly had it in for me. He was one of those teachers that has the view that their subject should be your most important subject, regardless of your future ambitions. If he thought that you weren't prioritizing art, then he would make your life heck. Yet again, I hated art as a subject. He knew this, but I would still do any work set to the best of my ability. We had just finished a project where we had to mix different pigments to create our own unique color. Being colorblind, I struggled a lot, as I literally could not differentiate between half of the pigments. I gave it my all, but ended up giving up halfway through the project. The teacher hated me for giving up. In his defense, he had tried to make it as easy as possible for me, but I hated the subject and saw a way out, so I took it. My teacher was beyond mad. When we went to hand the project in, he gave me a lecture about how I need to put in more effort and work harder because of the quality of my work and how unacceptable it was. Remember, I literally couldn't see half of the project. Once that project was finished, my teacher told us that Gallery X had asked that we create some inspired art. We were basically shown 5 different paintings that we were supposed to recreate in our own way. There was a big fuss about this. People were saying that art schools would be giving out scholarships, that there was a $10,000 reward, and other nonsense that 14-year-olds make up. But nevertheless, everyone wanted to be the one to have their painting in Gallery X. So for the next month and a half in my art classes, we would work on our piece. After the first week of working on my piece, the excitement of the new project wore off, and so did my eagerness in lessons. My teacher noticed this and went from complimenting my work to yelling at me about what I was doing wrong. By the 4th week, I was over the project and just wanted to be done with this. With 2 weeks left on the project, my teacher pulls me aside to tell me that my work isn't good enough and I need to improve it. I tried to improve, but he kept on belittling me. So, out of arrogance and spite, I made art my most important subject until the end of this project. I dragged myself to each lesson, quietly working myself to the bone, counting down the days until the deadline of this project. After what seemed like a year to 14-year-old me, the second last lesson arrives. This lesson was not for final touches or anything like that. My teacher had decided that he should review what each student has done well and where they could have improved. He walks around the classroom, complimenting everyone's work until he gets to mine. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I'm pretty sure none of it was positive. I do remember, however, how he finished talking about mine. "You can tell that OP hasn't given this any thought and hasn't taken this seriously." That stung, because yes, I had lost interest in it, but I had still worked hard in lessons and given it my best shot. The bell then went, and I sulked out of the class with my tail between my legs. The last lesson finally comes, and I can't wait to be over with this stupid project. This lesson was the big one too. The judges from Gallery X were coming to school to judge all of the work. They come into our class, do all the formalities. These all look so good. I have no idea how we can decide on only one, etc. Then they start walking around the room muttering to each other. The whole class has stood silently at the back trying to hear what they're saying. They do a full lap of the room, then walk back over to my spot. I don't even notice this, as I had tuned out after they had looked at the second painting. Then they ask the teacher whose work they are stood over. He looks at them with almost disbelief as he gestures to me. I snap out of my daydream and just smile politely with no idea what's going on. The judges then confer for a while, whilst my teacher and I frantically try and figure out what's going on. Finally, after about 5 minutes of mumbling, they say that they want to shortlist it to potentially be shown in Gallery X. I look on at them in shock, then yet again smile politely and say thank you. I cannot begin to describe the look on my teacher's face. I don't think I've ever seen someone more confused, angry, and disappointed all at the same time. My teacher then begrudgingly thanks the judges and walks them to the door. He thanks them again as they leave, then stumbles back to the class. He doesn't even congratulate me on my work. He just defeatedly says, "Good work, everyone. As a reward, I'll put on a documentary for you all to watch." And he did just that, not saying another thing until the end of class. Later on that week, I got an email from Gallery X asking for my permission to display my work, of which I happily said yes to. To sum it up, the work that he disrespected and that he said had no effort was selected from 192 others, got featured in the biggest art gallery in the country. Hope you enjoyed. Speaking of art, do you do any kind of art? And if so, what kind? Please let us know. Parents leave me with a sick baby and refuse to return until they've had enough fun. When I was 14, 20 years ago, I had been babysitting around my small town for 2 years. I had a great reputation with my regulars and would routinely stay until the early hours of the morning when the parents needed a night out. I would normally charge $15 an hour, but that would jump up to $20 after midnight. There was a wedding to be held in town, which meant people would be traveling to attend, and I was recommended to babysit by a trusted family friend. I had never met these parents before. Bit of backstory. At the time, there was a big outbreak of illness. There had been cases from where these parents were traveling from, and as a kid who was interested in stuff like this, I had read up all about it and knew the symptoms. The night of the wedding comes, and I arrive at the hotel to meet the parents. The baby is 1, and I thought it would be an easy night because I normally have 3 or 4 kids to look after. It was a really hot summer night, and the baby was taking a nap. The mother mentioned he was teething and might be a little whiny, but nothing I couldn't handle. About an hour after they had left, around 2 p.m., the baby woke up and was screaming. He was hot. I mean, so hot to the touch that I pulled my hands back when I went to pick him up. I tried to calm him and cool him, but to no avail. Any food or drink I tried to give him, he threw it back up. At 4 p.m., when I knew the ceremony was over, I called the mother to tell her how sick he was. This wasn't just teething. His temperature was soaring, and she didn't even leave any ibuprofen or anything to help with that. She sighed into the phone and told me she'd be there in 20 minutes. Where the reception was, it was a 2-minute walk back to the hotel. After waiting 2 hours and the baby not getting any better, I rang again and was ignored 3 times. By this stage, it had cooled down outside, so I took him for a little walk to try and distract him. However, I had locked myself out when I went to go back in. He threw up again. So at this stage, I was covered in it. I had to walk through reception at the hotel, which happened to be attached to the restaurant. So those dining got a good eyeful and smell to go with their dinner. The lady at the front desk let me back into the room, and I tried to ring again. The mother finally answered, and I told her everything that had been going on. She sighed again, said that they had just started dinner and would be straight back after that, and please don't try to call again. Another 2 hours later, around 9:30, I rang my mother, and she came to help out and bring me a change of clothes. We finally got the baby down at 11, and I rang one last time. Said that I had my mother with me, and I would be leaving at 12 after I called an ambulance for him. That mother ended up coming at 11:45, drunk, and very upset that I had ruined her night. She couldn't enjoy herself because she kept worrying that I was going to call. She yelled at me about the smell in the room and how many bottles I had gone through. My mom stood back and let me handle it, but spoke up and asked if I could get paid now because we needed to get home. The mother handed me an envelope and shut the door in my face. $20. That was all that was in the envelope. I was owed $150. Mom knew we wouldn't get her to answer the door again, so she took me home. The next morning, Mom woke me up with the extra $130. She had gone to the hotel at 7 a.m., and once she told the manager what had happened, the manager slipped a note under the hotel door saying that due to the extra cleaning and disinfecting that would need to be done to the room, there was to be an extra charge of $200 put on the room, plus the extra $130 that our in-house sitter was owed. When everyone looks after each other in a small town, it's a nice feeling. Apparently, the father blew up when the extra charges were put on his card. Didn't realize the baby was so sick, and he was yelling at his wife. The mother was screaming about the unsatisfactory babysitting I had done, and they left in a huff. I think about that poor baby every now and again, hoping that he was all right and got over whatever was making him so sick. I was in a small panic for about a week, waiting to get sick too, but thankfully, and by some miracle, I didn't. Just because you paid me doesn't mean I work for you. A bit of necessary background. This happened in 2003. I work in the insurance industry in a not very well-known profession having to do with audits. I got my start working for a small company created by my uncle, and I was with him for about 10 years. My uncle then decided it was time for him to build his dream home and move, which meant either I had to take over the company or find a new job. I didn't want to spend half my day chasing down invoices, so I elected to start a job search, and he agreed to give me some time to find a position before he shut things down. There are 2 types of positions in my field, where you either work for a vendor, which is an independent service provider, or directly for an insurance company. Openings at insurance companies don't come around that often, and vendors don't really have the greatest of reputations, so they're basically employers of last resort. That ends the background, and now my story. Over the course of about 3 weeks, I applied for 2 positions at different insurance companies and was quickly notified I didn't get one job. The second kept saying, "We'll get back to you." Not wanting to hold my uncle up, I bit the bullet and went and applied at the largest vendor in the country. The day of my interview, I met with the on-site manager, a lovely lady who seemed to be in a bit over her head. It just so happened that her boss, the district manager, and then his boss, the regional manager, were also in the office that day and sat in on the interview. It went well. I filled out paperwork, we shook hands, and I left. Did not hear anything from them for about a week. In that week, I finally got a call back from the other insurance company, which at the time happened to be the biggest one in the world, known by 3 initials. They offer me a position, go over details, set a start date, and I accept. The following Monday, my phone rings at about 10 a.m. I answer, and it's the lady that I had the interview with at the vendor, who I will now refer to as Vendor Lady. Vendor Lady: "Hi, we were expecting you in this morning. Is there a problem?" Me: Pardon?" Vendor Lady: "Today was supposed to be your first day, and we thought you would be here at 9. Me: "Why would you think that?" "That's what our records show." Me, with absolutely no irony whatsoever: "I don't work for you, lady. I never heard from you guys after the interview period. No one called to offer me a position or discuss salary, much less a start date." Vendor Lady, stammering a bit: "Oh, I had no idea. I'll take care of it, and sorry about that." Me: "Thanks, and have a good day, I guess." That's not the end of the story. The following Wednesday, which is typically payday for the job that I had, I go into bank account and see that there's an automatic deposit from the vendor. I stare at my screen for probably a good 5 minutes, trying to puzzle out what the heck is going on. Then I realize I'm going to have to call Vendor Lady. Me: "Hi, Vendor Lady. You might remember me from the mix-up where you thought I was supposed to work for you, but I don't. Why did I receive a paycheck from your company?" Vendor Lady: "That doesn't sound right. Let me check." She places me on hold for a few minutes and then comes back and says, "Well, it looks like since you filled out all of the required paperwork during the interview with your application, you were accidentally placed on payroll as well. What you can do though is just write us a check for the payroll amount and that should take care of it." Me, struggling to comprehend how truly stupid this whole situation is. "Listen, Vendor Lady, I review payroll records for a living, so I'm very aware that you can simply have your payroll department reverse the paycheck, which will basically zero out any payroll taxes that you paid as well as any that were withheld from the paycheck, as well as reclaiming the small amount placed into my bank account. So no, I will not be writing you a check and be paying you to not work for you." The week after that, I start work at the big insurance company, and ironically, within 6 months, both the district manager comes aboard as a coworker of mine, and then the regional manager comes aboard in a department related to mine. No clue what happened to Vendor Lady, but good luck to anyone working for her. Just following your rules, boss. I work at a paint factory where we make batches of around 5,000 pounds, sometimes more. We have to use forklifts in order to lift the large tanks that we make it in order to package it. I got my forklift license a couple years ago and have performed nearly every forklift task that we have to do hundreds of times. There are only 2 out of 12 workers without their forklift licenses at the plant, and those 2 are being trained. About a year ago, we created our safety committee, and I am the member for the back of the warehouse where we make and package the paint and where most of the workers are. We look out for any safety concerns, and if someone else has a concern or needs to make a report, we deal with that. We also do monthly and annual inspections of the premises. So our lead hand treats everybody like absolute garbage, and the boss does nothing about his behavior, his attitude, or the mistakes that he makes because they have known each other for over 30 years, including the job they worked at before here. They've been around here for 20 years. We are about to start packaging an oil-based paint into 5-gallon pails, like we always do. I lift up the forklift with the tank so that we can get a filter on it, and then once the others are out of the way, I start going up more so that I can line it up with the trough, like I have done 100 times with no issues. This time, however, I had put a bit too much pressure on the gas pedal and the tank went up too fast, so I stopped it before it got too high. Doing so, however, is also dangerous because it's about 6,000 pounds of weight up in the air above the workers. Stopping it too fast could tip over the forklift and the tank of paint, causing possible heavy damage and possibly injuring someone. Getting it too high could also have the same result, so I slowed it and let it sit for a moment just to make sure everything was stable. The tank was not too high, the forklift didn't tilt, wobble, or make any bad sounds, and everything was perfectly fine. Lead hand backs up with his forklift in the other room and sees me checking it and begins to chew me out. I'm used to this, as are most other coworkers, because he will yell and scream and get upset at anybody who does anything even minutely wrong or in a different way than what he has done for 20 years. He repeats himself multiple times, telling me why it is unsafe, which I had already acknowledged, and stated that I realized what I had done and what negative effects it could have had. He goes back to the other side and then comes over once more to repeat it a few more times. All I can say is, I am well aware, as I continue getting everything ready for packaging. He takes this as if I personally hurt his dog, goes to the boss and tells him the forklift's back tires were lifted off the ground and that we had to stabilize it, otherwise it would have fallen. The other two members of the safety committee start an investigation talking to the guys that were there. Only one had seen what happened, and he stated that everything was fine and that we didn't need to stabilize, nor did the tires lift off. A week later, we start getting the packaging ready, and I get onto the forklift to get it prepared. Lead hand comes running over, saying that it's a safety issue and that he is driving. I tell him I'm more than capable, and his response is that he needs me, not the other three guys standing there who normally do it, to guide him forward. I just go along with it until after the packaging is done, and then I say to him that because he stated that it's a safety issue, I'll need to bring it up with the other committee members so that they can start an investigation on how to mitigate this safety issue and make it more safe, as is my job whenever someone has a safety concern or issue. His response is aggressive at first, telling me he doesn't care, that it's already done, go ahead, etc., until he tells me that the boss told lead hand that he was to be the only one lifting up tanks from now on. I tell him that's fine, but I still need to bring it up with the committee since he stated it was a safety issue, and he just grumbled and walked away. Since then, anytime we have a tank to lift, anywhere from full to empty, I stand there and wait for him to come and do it, sometimes telling him to come and do it, and whenever he tells me to do it, I just repeat what he said about the boss stating that lead hand is the only one allowed to do so, and continuing to wait until he does. This is an ongoing thing still, and it will be for a very long time, unless we're told otherwise by the boss. Have you ever had a coworker you just couldn't stand? If so, why not? Please let us know.
I have one coworker I can't stand. His head looks like a balloon.
Entitled neighbor uses driveway without permission. My fiance and I purchased our home a few years ago, and our neighbor introduced herself shortly after we moved in. She seemed like a nice elderly lady who appeared to have custody of her young grandson. We had no issues until her middle-aged son moved in. This guy always yelled at the boy and is just generally acting like a jerk. He drove a small, beat-up truck that leaked oil. His mother has a nice, long double-car driveway and didn't want oil stains on the concrete, so she had him park in the side yard next to our house. It was right outside of our kitchen window and kind of an eyesore, but it's her property, so whatever. We assumed that her son would drive through their yard to his parking spot, but apparently that was too inconvenient. Instead, he decided to back into our driveway and through our yard to get to his spot. We were always at work when he did this, but we caught it on our camera. Our driveway is gravel and isn't in the best of shape. Her son would take off too fast and throw gravel everywhere. After a couple days, he started to leave a rut, so my fiance went over there to ask him to stop. The mother answered the door and seemed annoyed by our request. Her son parked in their driveway after this, so we assumed that that was the end of it. Well, while I was at work the following Friday, I received a motion notification from one of our cameras. I check it, and sure enough, I see her son using our driveway once again. After work, I passively-aggressively decided to park my car at the end of our driveway. The entrance is only big enough for one car, and there's a deep ditch on both sides, so I knew her son couldn't get out that way. We were planning on staying in for the weekend, so I wouldn't be moving it again until Monday morning. On Saturday, we were doing yard work out front, and the son came out with his dog. He gave us a dirty look, but didn't say anything. I figured he got the message. We woke up around noon on Sunday to a bunch of notifications from our doorbell camera. I pull up the video, and I see the neighbor's son absolutely fuming. He rang our doorbell 5 times and stood on our porch for 20 minutes. The whole time he was throwing his hands up and muttering about needing to leave. He actually expected us to get up, go outside in the pouring rain, and move my car so he could use our driveway to get out. He must have driven through his mother's yard to leave because his truck was gone. After that day, he never said anything to us and only parked in her driveway, so I guess he learned his lesson. The thing is, if he would have asked us first, we might have worked something out with him, but instead, he wanted to act like an entitled jerk. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have let him use your driveway or not? Please let us know.
I would have conveniently left some nails out there, bruh.
Crazy entitled lady loses it on me when I take a charity book. My partner and I are very avid book readers, especially since we've had a lot of home time due to current circumstances. Whilst I normally download mine to an ebook, My partner likes to buy traditional paperbacks. We normally would buy in shops, but have recently bought most online. To save money, my partner swaps books with nearby neighbors and friends. She's a carer, so also shares with the people she cares for, so there's a fair number of books being shared around. At some point, everyone has read all the books, and we would usually take them to a charity shop. Unfortunately, most are closed at the moment, so we now have a bag full of books and no one to give them to. So today, I learned of a local grocery store that has a charity book rack where you can leave the books on a rack and a few honesty money boxes to donate to said charities if you take a book from the rack. I needed some groceries, so I decided to take the bag of books with me, and so this is where our story starts. We've got me, we've got store assistant, we've got crazy entitled lady, and we've got the manager. I enter the store and see the store assistant. Me, can you tell me where the charity book rack is, please? I have a large bag to drop off. Assistant, it's in the corner of our store near the entrance. I'm the only one here at the moment, but if you leave the bag there, I'll sort it out later. Me, if you're busy, I'll just empty these books onto the rack and use my bag for groceries later. Oh, thanks. It saves me a job. So off I go to the book rack and empty about 200 pounds worth of books, and as I'm not busy, I had a look at what other people had brought in. Now there's one bad thing about ebooks, and that they don't have technical manuals. Someone had brought in a manual on how airplanes work, and I thought I'd take it to read. I check my pockets and realize I have no money on me, only credit cards. Oh well, I brought plenty of books in for charity, so I'll take this and tell the store assistant about it when I pay for my groceries. Enter Karen. I sensed some presence had been watching me for some time. A large, middle-aged Karen, dressed in a leopard skin dress, had appeared and was trying to get to the rack. I had been stacking for a while, and I thought I was in her way, so I moved to one side. She just stood there and stared at me. Then out comes this piercing voice that still sends shivers down my spine as I write this. Karen.
Who are you? And what are you doing to my books?
Yes, she did call them her books.
You don't work at the store, so you shouldn't be playing with my books.
Me. Ma'am, I just brought a load of books here and put them in the rack as the assistant couldn't leave her till. Karen.
I don't give a crap what you are doing. You shouldn't be playing with my books. I buy lots of books from here, so leave my books alone.
She then notices I have a book in my hand with my bag.
What are you doing with my book? I watched you. You haven't paid for that, you thief. I'm getting the manager now. Manager! Manager!
Now I'm a bit confused, as these are charity books, and the minimum contribution on the boxes states 50 pence a book. So I'm not really stealing after just dropping off 200 pounds in books. Karen then stomps off, and a few minutes later appears with a manager.
That's him. He took the book but hasn't paid for it. I want him arrested.
Manager. Ma'am, calm down. I can't do anything as he hasn't taken anything from this store. Karen.
Yes, he has. He's taken that book without paying for it. I work for that charity mentioned on the honesty box, and he has not paid.
Manager. Is that true, sir? Me. It is true. I only have credit cards, so thought I would be okay as I've just donated a large number of books.
See, he's a thief. He's stealing from my charity. Get the police, now.
Manager. I'm not getting the police involved for that small a sum. Sir, what does the donation say on that box? Me. Minimum 50 pence, sir. Manager then rummages through pockets, pulls out 50 pence in small coins, and puts them in the box as Karen watched. Manager. Now, ma'am, as you've hassled my customer over your charity, I'm going to ask you to leave now. Karen goes quiet, turns around and slinks out of the store with her tail behind her. Manager apologizes to me and offers a discount, but I said no as he's already bought me a book. I bought my groceries, assistant thanks me, and I go home. Not the most dramatic of stories, but she did make me laugh. Next time I'll wait for the charity shops to open. Speaking of books, do you like to read? And if so, what do you like to read? Please let us know.
I prefer listening. So on with the next story, Balloon Boy.
Am I the jerk for removing the wood my neighbor keeps putting on my fence? We recently got a dog. He's a friendly dog and very well trained. He used to be a competition dog, but got retired due to an injury that caused cosmetic damage to his face. Now, along with his size and scarring, he can look pretty intimidating. Now, to keep him satisfied and happy, we got a whole doggy gym set up so he could continue doing his various agility activities, including some jump bars. One of the first times I was out in the back having him do some agility practice, my neighbor's son was out in their backyard. He came over to my fence to watch, and we got to talking about him. He was impressed when my dog easily made it over the higher jumps. I made a quick comment about how it was nothing to him and he could probably jump over the fence if he wanted to. Well, he told his sister, who was apparently already scared of my dog due to his appearance and a bad experience with another dog. She's been refusing to come out into their backyard to play because of my dog. We tried introducing my dog to her so she could see that he was actually really friendly and well trained so he wouldn't just jump over and attack her. She was not having it though. So my neighbor has been putting up tarps and tried to attach plywood with some straps to the top of my fence so she would be less scared and won't see my dog. Now, my fence, which is solely owned by me and just on my property, is a beautiful decorative wrought iron fence that came with our Victorian-style house, and all the stuff he put on it looks tacky as heck. So I took it all down and put the stuff in a neat pile next to his house. He put it all back up while I was gone. While I was taking it down again, he came home, so I went over to talk to him about it. He got angry at me for taking it down and said he had to do it to protect his daughter and to keep her feeling safe. He said if I wanted to look nice, I should build a taller fence that wasn't see-through since I was the one that decided to get the dog. I told him I wasn't replacing the fence and that he could build his own fence on his property if he wanted to, but to keep stuff off mine. Then he said I was a jerk for thinking he should pay for another expense when I was the one that got the dog and he had recently been laid off, which is something I knew because we talked about it before. Also because it would be really easy for me to build one or put in some cheap hedges since my yard is just grass and his is all paved over. I don't want hedges taking up space in my yard or a different fence though. Well, what would you do in this situation? What do you think is the best way to solve this? Please let us know. Entitled Dad Can't Handle a Boo-Boo. So this happened about a year ago, but it wasn't the first or last time, or even the most ridiculous. Obligatory sorry for grammar or tense errors. Here we go. We've got entitled dad, who's entitled father-in-law. We've got mother-in-law, we've got husband, and me. So not to get into too much background, but my husband and I are living with his parents. They were struggling to pay their mortgage and needed help. I really didn't want to, because I knew how difficult it would be. I cried for weeks when they asked. I was so depressed, knowing what was coming. We moved in with a few conditions. One was privacy and respect for our space, and the other was no fighting in front of our kids. Entitled Dad drinks too much and can be pretty awful. Anyway, on to the story. During the move, we had the movers move the big stuff, but leave the small stuff behind. So later on in the day, husband and I are going back and forth from our old place. Husband is doing the bulk of that, while I start to unpack and organize that new home. Entitled Dad somehow cuts his finger. It's messy, but not an emergency. Either way, CVS is 2 blocks away, and he has a car available to him. Mother-in-law and husband are about to take another trip back home. Entitled Dad tells husband to pick up Band-Aids, and husband says he can't right now. Entitled Dad doesn't like that. He says something snarky to husband. I didn't hear it, but I could tell by the tone of his voice that he was salty. Husband walks out after 1 or 2 word rebuttal. I am in the closet in my bedroom, putting our clothes away. Entitled Dad comes without knocking or asking, complaining about husband and how disrespectful he is. I defend husband, of course, saying that he has a lot to do and just wants to get everything in the house before dark. Little did we know that we'd be up until 2 a.m. that night and the following. I say that we probably have some at home and that we will get it for him. He says, "So what? I have to wait just to get a Band-Aid?" This really upset me. Again, there's a car in the driveway. And again, drugstore is 30 seconds away. Having had a few ridiculous spats in our recent past, I really didn't feel sympathy for him. The guy doesn't even pump his own gas. Mother-in-law does hers, drives back, and then gets his car and does his. This is what he calls respect. This is the kind of guy he is. So anyway, I respond, "Well, no, you have to wait. You can take the car and get them yourself." He loses it, saying that we are ungrateful and disrespectful. Reminder, we moved in to pay his bills because he is too good to get a job unless it meets his exact specifications, and we are ungrateful? Okay. I text my husband to tell him what happened, and he tells me to not worry. I am, of course, upset because I don't want things to go to heck on the first day, so my husband suggests that I have a glass of wine with him. Perfect. He's sitting in the backyard, and I come out with 2 glasses. I ask if we could talk, and I start trying to smooth things over. I tell him that it's important that we let things go, and that we keep a healthy perspective on this whole situation. I point out that we are from 2 different backgrounds, and that we will see things differently, and need to learn to deal with that. I also say that he has the right to ask for a Band-Aid instead of complaining about how he didn't get one. He agrees with me, and I think, awesome, things are better. We finish our glasses, and I get up to continue with what I'm doing. He thanks me for apologizing. Come watch this video next, you will love it. And join as a channel member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make any kind of video you'd like us to, just come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.